We are, hello everyone, I'm Anumani, and I'm your modern day shaman and the best-selling author of Unmasking Your Soul, a transformational journey of truth, light, and healing. And today I have a special guest. Hi, Susan, how are you?
Hi, Anumani. Hello, everybody. I'm honored to be here.
It's so wonderful to have you. And I'm just going to read Susan's bio before we get started on the questions. So Susan L. Dascenzi is a licensed psychotherapist, vibrational sound therapist, intuitive healer, and international best-selling author, speaker, spiritual healer, and shaman who's had over 21 years of experience providing healing, therapy, and speaking services to a diverse clientele around the world, from individuals, couples, and groups to families, organizations, and companies. She's the owner and founder of True Visionaries, Inc., an organization dedicated to assisting those who desire emotional freedom from the past wounds that can trap them and prevent them from living their true potential and from listening to the monkey mind chatter instead of the voice of the heart. Her mission and passion is to guide those who are wanting to unlock those prison doors and uncover the vision for their life, not the vision someone else holds for them. A core belief of Susan's is that to be who you are meant and choose to be is a choice and a gift, and something that is everyone's right, not a privilege for the few. And she truly teaches you how to do that through her inspiring, down-to-earth, and authentic nature that is empowering, uplifting, and real. Her clients often nicknaming her my personal visionary. As an expert in human behavior and human nature, she knows how to exactly and quickly uncover the root of an issue and then compassionately guides you further along the path of healing through forms of therapy or coaching. And you can reach Susan, and we're going to put all this information underneath the video at her website at www.susandascenzi.com or via email at susan@susandascenzi.com. Welcome, Susan.
Thank you, Anumani. I'm so, again, honored to be here, and I thank you so much. This is such a beautiful platform for your audience. So many people are ready to unmask their soul.
Thank you. And it's a pleasure to have you. We hadn't caught up in a while, and it was nice to be able to catch up and talk about where we are in our journeys. And you're going to have an opportunity now to tell more of our audience. But I like to start the show by asking all of my guests what their definition of soul is. So how would you describe soul for our audience?
I really love this question, because we're so varied as human beings, and so many people have such different ideas, whether they have religion or spirituality as their kind of foundations and their belief systems. But to me, the soul is the essence of that infinite nature of who we are at the core, that infinite kind of energetic signature. I always liken it to like the ocean. We are all part of the ocean, and we're all drops of water from that ocean. And so we remain the ocean water, whether we're a drop of water on a leaf or a piece of cotton or a piece of paper. The form may change and it may look different on each thing, but at the core, it's still ocean water, and we're still part of that beautiful ocean of love and of the collective consciousness. And to me, that's soul, because if I could extract those drops from those pieces and put them back in the ocean, we wouldn't see where it begins and ends. We just become part of the oneness again. So to me, that's soul.
That's beautiful.
Thank you.
I love that. The expansive part of ourselves. And tell us about your journey of unmasking. You and I met through Christine Closer when we were doing the Master Heart program together.
Yeah.
Back in 2014, I think we met. It was late 2014.
Or 13. Wasn't it the previous?
I wasn't in the previous year. I was in.
No? Oh, yeah, but didn't we meet at the, well, I don't know. It feels like a lifetime when you're with spirits, right? And it feels like a lifetime. It's like, no, it's not just 3-4 years ago. What, are you kidding?
It does seem like forever. And I know we've known each other before.
Yeah.
But through our Master Heart program with Christine, we were co-authors on Pebbles in the Pond.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, that's when I first met you, and we started to have conversations about where we were on our journeys, and we really transformed together as we were continuing to participate in the program. So tell the audience about your journey, because you're a licensed psychotherapist. And I know that now you're doing a lot of different things. You're a shaman also, and you also channel like I do. So tell our audience like what your journey has been like, you know, how you've gotten to where you are now, and what masks you were wearing throughout that journey.
Well, the interesting thing is I'm still on the journey, of course, and still unmasking my soul. But I didn't forget who I was at the core from the time I was 4 years old. And that actually kind of goofed me up, because I was struggling with the fact that I had this awareness of soul and the awareness of the essence of who we are, and that there was something beyond. I mean, I used to go to my parents and ask them at age 4 about infinity and the universe and philosophy. And they were like, how do you even know those words? Go play with your Barbies. And I said, I don't like Barbies. They're not real. And so it kind of goofed me up, because I struggled between the dichotomy between being human and being the spiritual being. And so I actually kind of then created the masks of hiding from the pain, from hiding. And I didn't shove it on a shelf. I was well aware that the pain and of life was there. And as a 4-time sexual assault survivor, a lot of people expected that I would have kind of gone a stereotyped route of distrusting the world or distrusting all men or getting into drugs or alcohol or other things that were very self-destructive and negative. And I've had people ask me throughout the years, what kind of kept you from doing that? And I said, the fact that I knew that there was so much more to us as human beings on this planet. There was this soul and this thread. And so that helped me to begin to feel safe enough, and I'm still doing it, to let those layers peel away and unmask the beauty and the powerfulness and the intensity of my soul and all of our souls, so that I didn't have to feel so afraid to be authentically me. Because as you know me, I've never been afraid to be authentic and vulnerable. I'm like, hey, it's just me. I'm being real. It's who I am. But I was hiding from the deeper pain and the deeper parts of the fears that were stopping me. And I was listening to that, what I call, and many of us call, the monkey mind, and the chatter of the doubt and, you know, the worthlessness and I'm not good enough and those kind of things. And then when I would look at the outside experiences and they would kind of match up to what I was thinking, it would almost kind of confirm that, yeah, I'm not really worthy and I'm not really good enough to do this or that, or see somebody else does it like this and I can't do that. And so now it's become an easier process to detach from the stories of my conditioning and of my life experiences and allow those masks to fall away much more quickly and much more easily, most of the time.
And we're going to get into that, I think, a little bit later, because we'll go into maybe you explaining how you do some of that. But there were a couple of things that were coming to mind as you were telling your story. One is, I feel that a lot more children are being born awakened. Mm-hmm. So I know that when I was around 4, I would have these flying dreams and out of body experiences, but I shut myself off at some point. And so I guess my question to you is, as that little girl, how did you experience that spiritual part of you?
Wow. Well, I've always been a very, very powerful empath, and I've always been very clairsentient and clairaudient. I heard, I knew, and claircognizant. I knew, I heard, and I felt things very intensely. And I actually was clairvoyant until I was 12, when a friend of mine who I hung out with every single weekend, I had a dream a clairvoyant experience the night before where I'd seen an unfortunate situation with a good friend of hers who passed away in a car accident. And when we spoke the next day, when we got on the phone, she said something about, well, we're not going to be able to get together this weekend. And I said, oh, is that because you have a funeral to go to? And she goes, oh my God, how did you know? And I said, was it a white car? Was her name Deb? All these things. And she was like freaked out. And it was exactly that. And I became so scared at that point, I shut it down. And so although I was still very empathic and feeling and knowing, it started the process of beginning to really doubt that. And honestly, I'm 53 years old, almost 54, and I still have the doubts about the messages as I'm deepening and more gifts are kind of coming forth from my soul. I'm getting into the gremlins and going, can I trust that? And so my spiritual teacher, Katie Anna Clark, said to me, you trust your gifts, but you don't trust yourself. And I went, bingo.
Yeah, and I think it's common, right, for all of us to doubt, because the ego mind and personalities come in to tell us, like, who do you think you are, and all of this.
Right.
And it's really, having the tools to be able to dismantle that and to be able to deepen more into who you really are. And I was asking the question because I do see a lot of younger children waking up, and it's important to bring the awareness that the parents, if they're not awakened themselves, that they find the help to help encourage, the children, because it can really be a big shock to the body when you experience that and you don't have anybody to talk to or who understands what you're experiencing, or who might tell you you're crazy. Like me, my cousin said, oh, you're crazy. And that's when I shut myself down, because I was like, oh, I don't want to be crazy,
Right. And so many are still going through that. I have a client who's in her mid 40s who lived with a very narcissistic mother who was very much a perfectionist as well. And they had her hospitalized when she was about that age, 12 or 13, I think it was, because they said that she's crazy. And she has been struggling ever since to honor her soul and her gifts and her talents. And she has amazing connections with her guides and her angels and writes letters all the time and very powerful manifestation abilities. And yet she still sits in tremendous depression and anxiety and doubt and fear, because she's still conditioned to think that I'm going to be seen as the crazy one. And it's so terribly sad. And you're right. Kids, absolutely. I was graced with parents who were very progressive for the time in the 50s and 60s. And a lot of people often ask me, were they hippies? Did they smoke marijuana? And I'm like, no. But they just were very beautiful souls who allowed my two older brothers and I to just be who we are and taught us how to love from the heart. And so we felt safe with them. But the rest of the world, just like now, is going through changes, as we always do. And I think now, with a lot of the disconnection that we have, these kids are coming in very awakened, and they are absolutely our future. And we absolutely need to help foster that feeling for them, that they can believe in who they are, be who they are, and feel safe.
Yes. Yeah, so important. So was there a pivotal moment for you where you either something happened or you discovered, like, okay, I need to surrender even more and really just deepen into my gifts?
Yeah, and again, that's still unfolding, but there was a very critical choice point when I was 28. I was 28. I had just been through the last assault, which was very violent, and I believed I was going to die that night. And my son was not quite 2 years old. He's 27 now, so 25 years ago. And I was married to a man who had a beautiful heart, but he was an alcoholic and very emotionally and verbally abusive. And I was a woman in my 20s who had put on that mask of not happy, happy, joy, joy. I mean, I clearly people would see me feel all kinds of different things, but I put on that mask that I didn't really have to deal with the severity of all the pain that was really, really deep inside. And so I just kind of tapped into the spirituality and tapped into looking at things positively. And it kept me from looking at the masks that I was wearing. And so after the assault, and shortly after my son, which was about a week before my son turned 2, and within a couple of weeks after my son turned 2, my ex-husband, who's now deceased, bless his soul, had said something that cut me to the core. And I was going to commit suicide. And I wrote a suicide note. And I don't know to this day if I would have really gone through with it, but I knew the depth of the pain that I felt to write it. And what stopped me is that little voice in my head that said, reread this note now. And I reread it with an open heart. And the depth and the level of the pain shocked me so completely. It hit me like such a ton of bricks that I knew in that moment it was a choice to either live or die. And if it was die, then go do it. But if it was live, it was really live from this point forward, no matter how hard it got, no matter how tough it might seem. It was live and dive in and keep allowing and accepting and opening and deepening no matter what. And I feel like that's what I've worked hard to do over the last 25 years.
That's awesome. So what made you decide to become a licensed psychotherapist? Was it part of the experience you had, or what called you to do that?
A few things. Part of it was the assaults and the trauma itself and the expectations that others had that I should be this very stereotypical kind of person. And I wasn't. And I kept, diving in like, why am I not distrusting? I still remain very open and vulnerable to people. And you would think that that would have scared me to no end, but it didn't. And the other part of it was that as an empath, I always got the whole, there's something about you. I've told you things I've never told another living soul. I feel like I've known you forever. And in 5 minutes, I would know their whole life story. I'm 9 years old, and my girlfriend's mother is asking me about relationship advice. Like, what do I know about relationships at 9? So I kind of looked at that. And while the one part of me was saying, do I have a sign on my head that says it's okay to keep assaulting me? But then over here on the beautiful spiritual side, I said, do I have a sign on my head that says, I will always hold that space of love for you. And I know things and can share them. Like, I didn't know, right? And so I knew that I wanted to help people. I saw it as a prison back then. And I knew that I wanted to help people as I worked through it myself to get out of the way they get trapped by their past and the hurts and the wounds and the experiences, and how they believe that that's really who they are. When I see them as soul, I see them as just love. And so I said, well, what do I have to do that? And I talked to some mentors in college who said, go be a licensed therapist. And I went, there you go. That's what I'll do then.
So your clients, are they mostly women, or do you have both men and women?
Both men and women.
And yeah. Are there particular masks that you see across the people that you attract, that you serve?
Fear is huge. Fear is a huge mask, and then denial, right? If I've seen a lot of, I guess what you would call, I'm really big on language. So I'm careful of my language because it's easy to, everybody has their own meaning for things. And so it's easy to potentially misinterpret. But I've seen people use denial in like a false sense of, like I did too, a false sense of this in order to avoid that. Like if I dive into religion and I believe in my religious beliefs, or even my spirituality, or my work, or my family, or being a caretaker, or being a nurturer, or whatever it might be, then all of this stuff over here can go away. And somehow it just disappears. And we know that that's not really the truth, but somehow they get caught up in that. And so then they identify with the roles that they play. And those are probably the biggest masks that I see, is that people identify as the roles instead of that they're playing the role of wife or mother or father or sister or brother or friend or coworker, as opposed to, I am this spiritual being having a human experience. And I am also this human being having a spiritual experience. And it's okay to have both. You can play the roles of wife, mother, father, brother, sister, daughter, friend, but that's not who you are. And that's probably the biggest masks that I have seen over time.
So if you were to talk about some tips about either what you used in your own journey or things that you recommend to your clients, and somebody who is experiencing some of these things in their lives, you know, they might be feeling fear. They might know that there is a spiritual part of them, but they might not know how to access it. How would you recommend they start to unmask themselves, things that they can start doing to do the work that needs to be done?
One of the big things that I did with all of my clients is I helped them to learn how to question the truth of something, right? So if they got into the I am worthless feeling, right? I'm not good enough. I can't do that. Okay, is that true? Who made that true? Where did you learn that? Where did you first feel that? And where did you learn that? And it doesn't matter, oh, I learned it from my mother or my father or a teacher. That's not important. It's identifying a bit of the core root as to, can you go back in time to your mind's eye, to your life experiences, and come up with a time, an age that you were, when you recall something that may, just in asking you, what pops into your head? Oh, I was 7 years old and I was in second grade and the teacher said XYZ to me. Okay, so does that make it true? Does it serve your best and highest interest? So it's go back and think of an experience. First, identify what you're feeling and actually allow yourself to feel the feeling. If you need to detach because it's a traumatic thing and it's creating too much pain and too much fear in that moment, because I would never want to see anybody re-experience something without the support and the space held for them. So if somebody were to do this strictly on their own, it would be, ask yourself, when have I felt this before? Do I see a time, an age that I was? Ask who made this true? And why did I choose to believe it? Now, even if we're getting the consistent voice over and over saying, you're no good, you're no good, you're not good enough, like many parents unfortunately would often do with their children, right? Still to this day, ask yourself, is this really true about me? And then you look at, what proof do I have that it's true? And what proof do I have that it isn't true? Because one of the things that we often believe, we believe the lie of separation, right? We believe the illusions of the separation, and we believe the lies that some people are better than us, or they have more money than us, or they have more skill than us. And so therefore, we're measuring ourselves by that bar. And the most critical thing to diving into that root then, and really being able to unmask, is looking at what bar are you using to compare to? And where did you learn that bar from? Does that make sense?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you.
You're welcome.
So let's talk more about where you are now, because you've expanded you've unmasked more of your divine gifts and beyond the psychotherapy, which feels like it was a natural gift for you, even as a child, to be able to hold space for people to ask the right questions, to listen. Mm-hmm. So, but now you're doing quite a few other things. So talk about some of those things that you're doing now.
Oh, it's so exciting. Thank you for asking. It's so exciting because there is so many ways for all of us to heal and to return to source. And there are just a wealth of different processes or concepts or programs or, you know, gosh, I don't even know what to call it, right? There's just a wealth of tools in our toolbox that are available to all of us. And in unmasking more of my soul and really trusting myself too, I became honest with the fact that there are very specific things that I really, really love and have always been very passionate about. And sound and music and vibration, dance, writing, those things have always been extremely important to me. Not because I want to be this, you know, amazing writer who all the world knows kind of thing, but I always wrote poetry as a child. And ever since, I just allowed that. I had to have a creative outlet. And I always used music and dance. And so what's been beautiful is that all these things are getting incorporated now, right? And so it led me on a path to, you know, look at how to use sound and vibration and music in a way that was really profoundly healing. And so I did become a certified vibrational sound therapist, which is a fancy way of saying I learned how to use singing bowls and other forms of vibrational sound as on the body, and around the body, as a way to facilitate healing and provide that environment. I honored the fact that I always knew I was a shaman, and yet I didn't know a lot about it directly, right? And that's what's so beautiful, is that there have been things that I have done my whole life that I didn't know I was doing that now have like a label for it, but it goes way back beyond our ability to understand as a human being right now, and going, oh, so that's been happening for thousands of years? Is that what you call that? You know? And so that, and angelic light weaving, which is seeing the colors and the geometric shapes and points of light. It's an angelic light language that is just indescribable. It's absolutely beautiful. And it's like, it's healing the matrix that we are all like, it creates and strengthens the web. I suppose if you wanted to say aura, but it's so much broader and deeper and more powerful than that. And it's helping to heal that and create that web of just love that we are cocooned in, you know, so many things. I mean, my gosh, I could probably talk for hours, Anumani, about, you know, because I'm a very intuitive healer, and honestly, I don't go by the roles anymore. I mean, we have to put the labels down so that other people kind of have a common language they understand. But when I work with someone, I pick up so much from them right off the bat. And then I feel and see where they're at. And then we work together to create the best path that can be illuminated for them. And I just hold the most amazing space for them to feel safe and loved to do that and get to those roots, so they no longer have to identify as those things. Did that answer your question?
Yes, and I actually want to talk a little bit about this and then actually go into maybe some sampling, healing. We'll see what comes through.
Okay.
But I wanted to mention, based on what you were saying, that, you know, I get a lot of questions around this, and people saying they're trying to find their purpose or don't know what their purpose is. And I think that for both of us, that as we started to work on ourselves and release what was in the way, the gifts just naturally came through. As people will ask me, like, where were you trained? You know, I call myself a modern day shaman because I wasn't trained in the jungles, but I do all the shamanic work. You know?
Right.
And it just comes through. And so there is a part of just surrendering to what is, to what you are, to the truth that's within you. That in my book, I talk about the God seeds within, that when the vibration hits the same vibration of those seeds, your gifts just naturally start to open up. And it seems like I've been channeling forever, but I've really only been channeling since the retreats with Christine, because those writing retreats, which were writing retreats and sometimes non-writing retreats.
The writing retreat that wasn't a writing retreat.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That helped us really step into who we really were. It was the catalyst for me to really surrender to that spiritual being that you speak of. And up until that point, it's like I didn't realize, like, oh my God, there's still a part of my spirituality that I have masked.
Yeah.
Because I was afraid of showing that part of me. And then the channeling came through when I released that piece. So I'm just reiterating for the audience that yes, sometimes we need to be trained, but I believe that what we need is already within us, and we need to surrender to it. And you need to, then you just start allowing it to come through you. And then you may need some guidance with it, or you may not, right? Because if you have your guides coming in, it really depends on where you are on your journey. But I would just say surrender to that part of you, right? And, we are examples of that as we surrender, it just started to come through.
And I'm still surrendering. I had a situation just last week, a week ago today, as a matter of fact, with somebody brand new that I had just met the night before, who I did an intuitive healing session with. Actually, well, this person is an amazing, uses her mediumship skills and card reading, tarot and oracle cards and all kinds of things in profoundly amazing, beautiful ways. And I did an intuitive healing session with her, and I felt compelled at the end to pull a few cards. Now, I have never done that for a stranger before. Like, I've done it for myself and maybe a couple of close friends that we were playing around and talking about things. And so we're like, oh, let's pull a card or two, right? But I felt very compelled to do this. And I surrendered to it, even though my monkey mind was like, you're intimidated by this woman. She's amazing. And like, you don't know what you're doing. You still have to read the book on this, right? Kind of deal. The little book that comes with like card decks. Yeah. And I know what I was picking up from it, but it was like not trusting myself. So I'm reading, the little description or whatever too. And she was like, spot on. You need to trust that. And just in this last week, more and more has come through in multitude of ways, because I said, I surrender to being 100% my soul and the reasons I came here and chose to stay here. And that wasn't the first time I had chosen to stay. And so, and not due to suicide, but due to an illness when I was 2 months old and almost died. And so I had chosen to stay. And so in recognizing that several years ago, after I think the retreat where you and I channeled together, I think it was right after that retreat. Yeah, I'm pretty sure, because it was in July and my birthday is at the end of July. I, for the first time, had 100% gratitude, like with every fiber and cell of my being, for staying and being here, and knowing that I had these talents and gifts that would continue unfolding, and I would surrender into them and allow myself to step in as this personality so that I could complete the reasons that I came here, to do. And the more we surrender, one of the questions I get a lot though is, how do you surrender? Right? And I honestly couldn't offer up how to do it. Like, I don't know if you can, but it's about trusting and just allowing, tapping in. I mean, there's no process that I know of. Do you?
Well, to me, because I've had the question as well, it really is beginning to practice that as you get the guidance, you take the action.
Yeah.
Even if you don't understand. And sometimes on the most mundane level, like park your car here versus over there.
Right.
And really listening to that level, because there's always a reason for why you're being given guidance. Mm-hmm. And you can only gain trust if you take the action on that guidance. And I believe that part of the reason why the divine does it that way is so that when we get the bigger demands, like move across the country, right? You've already practiced
Right.
doing the little things to
Yeah.
give you the confidence, like, oh, I need to listen to this. And
Yeah.
how many times haven't you heard people say, yeah, I was told to go to another country, or I was told to move to, you know, California. I think Eckhart Tolle tells a story about that. The surrendering is surrendering to that, to the guidance that you're getting, because we're really not in control. As much as our personalities want to be in control, we are not.
Nope.
And if you accept that there is a higher power, then our work is to listen and take inspired action and surrender to that guidance. And, you know, I was one of those who resisted every step of the way. I got sick because of it. I had a near-death experience, right? Yeah. So when you resist what you're being told to do, that's when this stuff happens in your life. So I would encourage people to take the little baby steps, that as you get that small guidance on the mundane things that may seem strange, right? Yeah. Like, why should I park over here? I tell this story all the time, you know, that I was driving to Barnes and Noble, and there's always a spot where I park. And that day they said, no, don't park here, park over there. And I was like, okay, I've learned not to question anymore. So I park in the other spot. I get out of the car, and there was a beautiful rose on the ground. And the rose petal was shaped like a heart. And the message was, we just wanted you to know how loved you are. But it was also important for me to do that, right? Because part of it is a test, a practice. They're helping us practice the small steps, so that then we can take the bigger steps to, you know, really deepen into who we are and the work we're here to do. And one thing I've learned is that even our gifts evolve over time. So as you're speaking about, you know, picking the oracle card. So I started with hands-on healing, and I was so attached to that. I thought, like, oh my God, you know, it has to be like hands-on. And I remember one day, like, Divine said, let go of that, you know, because you need to evolve it. And now it's all through my voice, right? If I hadn't let go of that attachment to the form of the healing, I never would have been able to then surrender into what wanted to come through my voice, which was the channeling and the singing and all the stuff that I do, right? So that's part of the journey, is every step of the way you're surrendering to that next step, that next piece of guidance, that next part of you that wants to express through you.
And that's interesting because, one, I'm opposite. I was talk, right? Talk. And now I'm more energy and hands-on, and you just kind of allowing the empathic and kind of the messages and the mediumship pieces and the shamanic pieces to come through. And, you know, so because I spent all those years in the box as a therapist who still practiced very holistically. I did many things that were I never practiced as a traditional therapist. You know, I always like to tell the story of, so how do you feel about that? And how do you feel about that? Like, you know, because I was so intuitive and I was such a strong empath and I felt so much, they'd be smiling and telling me some story, and I'd feel it in my body, this huge wound or this huge thing in them. And they're and I'd go, wait, stop. I don't mean to interrupt you. Actually, I do mean to interrupt you. Stop. What was that just happened? And they'd be like, you know, because I did trust that piece, but I thought I had to stay in that box. Yeah. And so I'm quite the opposite in that now I'm using more of the hands-on and the other healing modalities and moving away from the talk stuff, because I would tell the same things to my client. And, you know, I never realized that from the deeper spiritual place, Adamani, that the same baby steps, when I would have somebody who would be really like depressed and they just didn't feel like they had the energy to even do anything that day, but they wanted to clean a room, right? I would say, just start with one piece of paper on one pile on the desk as one piece of furniture in that room. Don't worry about the whole room, one piece of paper. And then maybe tomorrow do two pieces of paper, baby steps. And I never equated that. Thank you for that. I never equated that to our spiritual journeys too, that it was about those baby steps for ourselves and trusting those pieces and taking those actions and seeing the beauty of it unfold that allowed us to trust more. And if I may talk about Sequoia for a second.
Yes, please.
So that brings...
Tell the audience who Sequoia is.
Okay, so Sequoia came about when Anumani and I were at this retreat 3 years, three years, almost 3 years ago. And I had no clue. Anumani had been channeling Ishtar for a while at that point. And our spiritual teacher, who was there at the time, is a woman who shares a steady stream of consciousness with 976 souls. And I was in awe of her and of Anumani and anybody who can do those kind of things, right? Like anybody who's ever channeled like an entity. And I get this knowingness, all right? And I get this, Anumani and I just kind of like start channeling together. And this was before the whole other situation that happened later. And I'm like, I don't know what that was all about. I'm speaking in this language, and where she and I, I'm like, what the heck? And so we have some time to spend to ourselves, and I'm sitting under a tree on a beautiful grounds, and the name Sequoia pops into my head. And I felt just such an absolute immediate knowingness, connection, and like, yeah, that's this entity, Sequoia, knowing nothing about what Sequoia means or anything like that. And then I look up what Sequoia is. It's, a beautiful redwood tree and many, many things in Native American culture. Very ancient, wise, old woman, right? Or not old, ancient wisdom. And Anumani comes walking back from a period of time where she was spending in some solitude. And I said, I don't know, we had a bit of a conversation and it came out that Sequoia was the name. And she's like, oh, yeah. And so then it was that same retreat 2 days later, right? Yeah. When Anumani and I felt compelled to light weave on the group. And I asked our teacher if it was okay, and our coach, and she said yes. And I locked eyes with Anumani and I could not look away. But it wasn't Anumani and I. It was Sequoia and Ishtar that were communicating like as old friends who had been here since, gosh, I don't even know. I mean, not even the dawn of time, right? Like whatever. And I'm light weaving the group, and Anumani and I cannot break eye contact. And after that was done, we stood next to each other, and just the energy and the power and the things that happened were beyond imagining. And I walked away from that retreat going, what was that? Like, right? And so I actually covered that. I created a mask for Sequoia. I was talking to a dear friend, and because part of my mind, my human mind, couldn't wrap myself around the fact that maybe I was worthy or I was able to tap into a consciousness that is very ancient, I denied a voice to her. And I really believed it was because that was representative of a very ancient part of me, that it was almost like I needed to create this extra entity out here that had this voice because I couldn't believe that I could. And I really believed that until last Thursday when Anumani and I got on to do a tech check for the show tonight. And a little bit of channeling occurred and my voice changed. And I said to her, wow, I just realized that I've been denying her voice and she hasn't fully trusted me because I've been denying that part, that it's not that it's separate. It's, I truly believe we're all one, and Ishtar is in me and Sequoia is in you, and the consciousness that Katie Anna shares is in all of us. It's just that we're each have our, what would you call it? Like the roles to play, or have our
it's
paths?
It's it's the way we're meaning to bring the representation of that consciousness through ourselves.
Yeah.
And we have to allow the, right, because I felt the same way when I first channeled Ishtar. When my voice changed, I was like scared and thought people were going to think I was crazy. And then I, like you, I believe we're all one, right? But that in this moment right now, I am to surrender, to allow my voice to change, to allow Ishtar to speak in the way they're supposed to.
Yeah.
And maybe there'll come a time, right, when my voice doesn't change. But right now I'm being asked to just surrender fully to whatever needs to come through me. And that's part of the journey too, is trusting in that in this moment, Sequoia has that part of you that transmits through your voice in the way she does. And for me, Ishtar.
Yeah. And I denied that until, again, just this past Thursday, 4 days ago, when I was trying not to, like, Sequoia was there and Anahani and I were talking and Ishtar had come through, and I'm just using my current voice because that part of my mind is going, you don't need this outside like entity or expression in order to allow Sequoia's wisdom to come through. But it felt wrong to me. It felt like I was pushing something down and pushing her down. And all of a sudden I heard, just let go and allow me to speak. And boom, all of a sudden my voice changed just a little. And we had this beautiful conversation as Ishtar and Sequoia. And it was like, wow, I've been denying this. And just since Thursday then, even, since last Sunday even, and now, you know what I mean? Monday and then Thursday, and so much more has even happened since then. Mm-hmm. And it's like, wow, that's the deepest surrender. And it is getting out of my own way. And I know your chapter in Pebbles in the Pond was Unmasking Your Soul, right?
Yes.
And my chapter in Pebbles in the Pond was, it's a matter of trust. Right? Trust. Yeah. Not this stuff here, but trust here, you know, trust that. So yeah, pretty wild, pretty exciting.
So what are you feeling? Should we try to connect and do something here?
Yeah, absolutely. Would you like some sounds to help aid that first, or
why don't you go ahead so the audience can hear some sounds? Yeah.
Okay. I'm going to play a little bit of my steel drum first. Okay. And then I'm going to use just 2 bowls as a way to create a different resonance and see if Ishtar and Sequoia connect. Okay. So hopefully you all can hear this well, and it's not very reverberating. It's a very intense resonance. And so I hope that you can hear it well. And please just close your eyes and allow yourself to surrender into the sounds and whatever it is that you feel.
Hello, my dear. It's wonderful to have you here with us today.
Oh, Ishtar, it's been such a long time. How are you?
We are always fantastic, my dear.
Yes, the
We are.
world is awakening. Isn't this such an exciting time to watch as people grow and step into the truth of who we've always seen them to be?
Yes, my dear. It's wonderful to be here, to be witnessing, and to be partnering and collaborating together to shine the light and the love upon this world.
Absolutely. And I think that all the time that we have spent in kind of the galactic ethos, just kind of observing and watching and knowing that every single soul that ever incarnated would take that moment if they learned that they were much more than they knew. And we are now seeing this unfold in such a grand way. And it is, oh, I think the human language is not a very good expression of the intensity and the infinite kind of, not even power, what would you call it?
Yes, well, it is an awakening to who they really are, the source within themselves, the God within, the cosmos within their hearts that unites us all is beginning to awaken.
Yes. And I know that there is a lot of fear right now. There is a tremendous amount of fear, and there is a tremendous amount of judgment and scarcity. The thoughts that they're not enough, or there isn't enough, or that these things will happen that are negative. And the beauty is that they are diving in because it's a choice. It's that point, like Susan had so long ago. It's that point of, do I go this route or do I go that route? And although they don't necessarily know from this conscious place what that choice might reveal for them, they are trusting on a much deeper level. They just don't know that they are. Wouldn't you agree?
Yes, that is true, my dear. And Anumani has had many of those choice points, some of recent, even October of last year, where she had to choose whether or not she would stay on her course. Her body was getting tired, but she was surrounded by people who loved her, who reminded her that she was here with a purpose and that she was here to help others with their purpose, just as Susan is. And that reminder, it's like they bathed her in this beautiful essence of love. And she likes to call it being loved back into being. And that's what we are doing together. We are loving humanity back into being, right? Together as we collaborate with one another, loving each other back into being.
And all of the other beings of light who some have forgotten. I know that Susan, she thinks that this was born from her own experiences with clients and other people, but she doesn't realize, my dear, that we put that into her head and put that into Anamani's head, yes, that the forgotten is for the getting. It's always there. You just have to remember, become a member once again of that body of knowing. But it's really much more than the knowing, it's the trusting. Yes. Right? It's the surrender, as Anumani said. And this is so delicious because we get to watch from afar and just send the love and send the I guess the internal knowingness, I guess it would be. We, to us, it's not anything we've ever forgotten or needed to remember, or it's just who we are and we know that. But for them, they get so caught. And so it's delicious to watch as they it's like the child who's learning to walk, and all of a sudden they realize they could take that step and not have to hold on to anything. And they go, I'm so excited that I took this step. And to us, it's like, we don't even walk. We just are, right?
Yes.
This is the delicious part.
It is, as they learn to transcend that monkey mind that Susan speaks of, right? Because that is the culprit many times, getting in the way of the truth of who they are and who they can be, and not really understanding how powerful they really are.
Yes. And I go ahead.
No, we were just going to say that that is really the part that Anumani in the last couple of days was really helping to bring into some of the soul group work that she does to bring that power to the surface. For when humanity can stand in that power that was given to them by Source, it's like the rest begins to take form and shape. For that power accelerates their ability to evolve and shift their consciousness.
Yes. Well, that's why they call it empowerment, right?
Yes.
And I know Susan has such a connection to inspiring and empowering and uplifting, because she truly has not forgotten, and none of us have. We really haven't. Well, not we. Well, we never have, but we, as in the humanity that is incarnated now, they truly haven't forgotten. They just don't trust to remember.
Yes.
And the power is always there, and they feel those fleeting moments of it. And in those fleeting moments, I don't know about you, Ishtar, but I see those beautiful little sparks in that moment where they have that trust and they have that feeling of power, and they truly are uh, beyond this world at that moment. And then they become afraid again. And so they're coming along quite nicely, actually.
Yes, they are. So would you like to create some sound for the group that is watching, my dear?
I would, and I would love it, because I'm feeling I want to use Susan's voice, and I would love it if you would join me as Shah. As I allow Susan to dive in, she'll just be consumed by the sound, and you and I, whatever we feel, allow whether it's the language we know, whether it's just sounds. It's just such a time of awakening.
Yeah, so we will just ask the audience to just focus themselves wherever in their body they feel they may have some level of fear or resistance, anything that is ready to be released so that they can step in more deeply into who they really are.
Let me just move these things. And again, hopefully the sounds are just very, very, very resonant. And actually, I picked 3 bowls. So, okay. Just going to begin with a softer mallet to allow the buildup of the sounds. And just close your eyes and allow yourself to surrender into whatever it is that you feel. santi kutali bantu fasitu chinaku Awaken, children. Awaken into the essence of who you are. Awaken into the spirit and the soul that you've always been. Allow yourself to feel the freedom wash over you. Oh, Laki no fasi Pantura hi no untapati
Awaken to your spirit now.
With each breath, my dears, feel the wind of trust, feel the wind of power, feel the wind of the love that you are at the core. Feel it blow through you and around you, above you and below you, in front and behind you, expanding into the infinite nature of who you are. Allow the power within to guide you at every step, to guide you at every decision. With love, feel the power of those thoughts that bind you and hold you back, and send them love. Send them the wings of these sounds, of these chimes, of every sound in your life. Feel the vibrations of your feet upon the earth. There is no time. There is no past. There is no future. There is only the now in every moment. And allow yourself to feel the power of the surrender of this place. You are so loved. You are so loved. And you are so much more than you know. I honor you, Sequoia. I honor you, Ishtar. I honor the beauty and the power that we truly all are. And in humble gratitude, I continue to be a servant of love. Thank you.
Thank you, dear one. We honor you. We honor Sequoia and all those who have joined us today, reminding them that they are loved and they are loved.
Yes.
So tell our audience how they can reach you, how they can work with you if they'd like to work with you.
Thank you, Anamani. I know my last name is not the easiest to spell, but I believe on the replay it's listed here. So it's pretty easy, www.susandascenzi.com. My email address is equally as simple at susan@susandascenzi.com, kind of keeping it the same. And I love to work with people who are ready to dive in and whatever that means for them. And so right now I'm offering a special that for being with Anumani and Anumani show and following Anumani and the gratitude and humbleness of being allowed to be with you, Anumani, and share in your audience and bring more love and light and healing to the world. I'd love to offer your audience a $47 special for, I used to say 30 minutes, but here's the truth. I struggle with the 30-minute deal, right? You know, so I kind of work with somebody and learn kind of in the beginning of what they're looking for. And I use whatever tools I need, whether it's some crystals or shamanic work and my drums. And, you know, I have other drums and things like that, like whatever is needed. I'd love to be able to help your audience. And so if you go to my site and you either go to the contact page and write me a quick note and you say, Anumani, I saw you through Anumani show, I will honor that $47 deal for kind of an initial session, you know, for us to get to know each other and really see if you feel I'm a good fit with you to kind of help you on your journey. Or they can go to the Working Together page on my website that lists that, and there's a little button that says here where they can actually go to the application and fill out the application. It's not really an application as much as it's just kind of a way for us to begin to get to know one another. They can also catch me starting tomorrow night on Facebook Live with a dear friend. Her name is Abby Gateman, and we are going to be hosting a talk show together that's interactive, where it's called Holding Space with Abby and Sue. It'll be 7 p.m. Central Time, 8 p.m. Eastern Time, 5 p.m. Pacific Time, directly on Facebook. And you could go to, will you be able to post things?
Yeah.
Okay. So it'll be facebook.com/resilientyou. Okay. We're going through her page. Just, it's much, much easier. My community page on Facebook is a long name. It's TV, like the television, TV Inspiration Station. That's a lot of letters to type. And so I'm looking at changing that, but I'm working with Facebook right now to see how I can shorten that down. That's my community page. It's called True Visionaries Inspiration Station. It's designed to provide a community of people that can come together to inspire and uplift and empower one another, because I truly live and breathe by that motto. So I maybe gave too much, but that's kind of a few ways to reach me right now.
That's wonderful. So I will get all that info from Susan and place it underneath the video so that you guys can take advantage of that $47 special offer. Thank you for offering that.
Sure.
Any last words before we close out?
It's a beautiful time. It really is to be alive. And I truly did believe that for many years of my life, Anamani. I loved life and looked at life through joyful and loving eyes, but there was that part of me that wanted to go home, that felt like it was heavy and dense and people were mean and nasty and bad things happen and all this stuff. And that was part of the mask of the victimness and of like, oh, I'm this spiritual being and this is too much. And then I surrendered into, but I stayed and I'm here and I'm informed and I have lots of beautiful work to do. And I don't know how it's going to unfold or what it's going to look like or with whom, but it's beautiful, and honor that. And so I thank you for having me on the show and allowing me to, reconnect with you, and allowing Sequoia and Ishtar to reconnect. They're beautiful beings of just pure love. And for us to be able to share more with your audience, it's just such a beautiful time. Thank you.
Yeah, my pleasure. And thank you. I'm looking forward to doing more stuff together, and we will put all your information beneath the video. I just want to thank everyone for joining us today, reminding you that you are loved and you are loved. And yes, what a beautiful message to end with, that it is a really important time to be alive, to be grateful for being here, and to joining together in that mission of love. Because it's only through love that we will win and shift the consciousness. So let's come together in love.
Absolutely. I love you, dear Anamani, and your audience. I love you all. You are loved and you are loved. And namaste.
Namaste. Signing off here, and we'll see everyone again next week, Monday. Bye.
Bye, everybody.